Alright, I want to start this video off by saying that I have nothing against you, Matthew. You're a great educator and comic, and I admire those traits about you. However, every now and then, I see you making a video like this, in which you give undue credibility to paranormal claims. This is just a response video, in which I'll look further into your claims you make in your video. So without further ado, let's begin.
So the idea of being psychic is often something that many people scoff at.
Oh no, Matt, please, don't say it.
Literally millions of people have claimed to have supernatural abilities.
Did you also know that millions of people have claimed to see demons, aliens, Elvis, and even Tupac to this day?
And while many of them have been debunked as frauds, there are still a number of psychic powers that still cannot be explained today.
Oh really? No one can explain it? Well geez, that must mean it's true. I guess my work here's done.
So without further ado, here they are. 10 amazing psychic abilities people may actually have. Number 1 is hypnosis. Let's start with the ability that thousands of doctors and scientists have been researching and debating for over 200 years. In the late 1700s, Austrian physician Franz Mesmer developed a form of forced meditation he believed connected both the user of the ability and their patient. He called this mystical link animal magnetism. When put into a trance-like state, the patient is said to be easily influenced by suggestions of the hypnotist.
You're actually not too far off there, Matthew. While hypnosis started out as more of a pseudoscience, over the last 30 years, more and more health professionals have started using it for purposes such as alleviating pain to retrieving memories long buried in the subconscious. However, this is not a psychic ability at all. It's more akin to the psychological equivalent of a placebo pill. Experimental tests have shown that participants who undergo hypnosis show identical brainwave activity as participants who are in a normal state of consciousness. Additionally, there has yet to be a consensus on what a hypnotic state of mind is. This is mostly due to the fact that using current technology to measure brain activity, there has been absolutely no evidence of an alternate state of conscious as many proponents of hypnosis insist upon. What does this mean? Well, that's up to you to decide, but I'll leave you this quote from psychology PhD Keith Harary. In all likelihood, hypnosis is a metaphor for selling our own intrinsic mental capability short. Hypnosis may be the ultimate psychic sales spiel, a way for us to disown powers we already have and buy them back under a fancy label.
Number 2 is astral projection. Imagine being able to leave your body and travel through your home, or wherever you fall asleep, into seeing and hearing things well out of your physical range. Well, that's astral projection and has been demonstrated by a number of people.
No, stop right there, Matt. It has not been demonstrated. While there are many people that claim for this to have happened to them, it has not been observed under controlled conditions. For this claim you propose to be true, you would have to demonstrate that a conscious can exist without a physical brain present. And for even this to be possible, it would require our current understanding of physics to be completely wrong. I'm sorry, I don't buy it. For these extraordinary claims to be true, you need to provide me with some extraordinary evidence, and not just some anecdotal stories.
According to Jerry Gross, a noted practitioner of astral projection, this power is not one people are born with, but one that they can develop through practice.
As for this Jerry Gross fellow you mentioned, I found his website, and he even has a list titled Scientific Evidence Supporting Near-Death Experiences and the Afterlife. Let's take a look at that list and see what his sources are. Okay, this link goes to an article on his own site, and this link goes to a book, okay? Oh look, an article on his own site again, and a link to buy another book. Wait a second. What's this on the right-hand side of the webpage? Huh. There seems to be some ulterior motive for him supporting the idea of astral projection. But I'll leave that up to you to decide. In case any of the viewers are interested, I'll leave the link in the description.
Number 3 is enhanced vision. Bashful people beware. Enhanced vision is an ability that does just what the name implies. It gives the individual uncanny sight that's beyond what science can fully explain. One person who's proven to have this ability is a Russian woman named Natasha Deminka, who at only 10 years old could see inside a person's body.
First off, her name is not Natasha Dominka. It is Natasha Demkina. Now, she's likely the most well-known person you mention in this entire video. Not only did I find multiple web pages about her, but there has even been a test done on her by the Committee for Skeptical Inquiry. The test involved her matching a set of 7 physical abnormalities, which were told to her prior to testing, to 7 subjects. She's an interesting case, because before testing, she claimed to be able to see a person through their clothes all the way down to the cellular level. However, during the preliminary stage of testing, she refused to have the subject stand behind a thin fabric sheet. In the end, the fabric sheet was removed, and she did the test. She ended up matching 4 out of 7 people correctly, after looking at them for over 4 hours. One of the people she guessed incorrectly was a man who recently had a brain tumor removed, and during the test had a metal plate in his head. Call me crazy, but I think she might be lying about the whole vision thing. But why? Not very surprisingly, it seems that the reason why is money. She averages around $2,600 US a month for her services in Russia. To be honest, I don't blame her. That's a lot of money for just looking at a bunch of people.
Number 4 is channeling. The power that's received quite possibly the most scrutiny because of the amount of fake practitioners is channeling, which involves allowing another spirit to enter the psychic, which is called a medium, and control their body, their hands, their face, and their vocal cords. Often, when a spirit enters an individual, the medium becomes unconscious, unaware of what the spirit is doing or saying. One of the most famous mediums in the world is George Anderson, who spent decades communicating with dead loved ones' grieving families to help bring them closure. Anderson actually holds the title of the most scientifically tested medium of the century.
I've already talked about the unlikeliness of the existence of a floating conscious. So instead, I'll look into this guy you talk about, George Anderson. For a man that holds the title, the most scientifically tested medium of this century, there sure seems to be almost no available information on these scientific tests. However, I was able to find a tragic story about what happened to somebody that paid for his services. The story is very long, and I'll leave the link in the description if you viewers want to read the whole thing. Essentially, this lady lost her husband and child within a couple of weeks. She ended up paying $1,000 for an appointment with George Anderson that was set to happen 3 months later. After 3 months, George Anderson called her, and essentially, he started feeding her information that, in her opinion, could easily be found through public records. But here's the worst part. George Anderson incorrectly told her that they had no children. Why would he get this little detail wrong? The reason why is because this woman's son was born and he died in another country, so his birth and death certificate would be extremely hard to track down. Now, I don't know about you, Matthew, but this George Anderson fellow sounds like the biggest douche in the universe.
Greetings from the Janix Galaxy. We seek the great John Edward.
Why, that's me!
Sir, it is an honor to meet you.
Well, thank you very much! No, it can't be.
I am Quagmire, and this is the Intergalactic BDIU Committee. Mr. Edward, it is my honor to inform you that you have been nominated for Biggest Douche in the Universe.
What? You are the first nominee from the Milky Way Galaxy. Congratulations! Oh, dude!
If you step into our Blabla-Fried, we'll give you a first-class ride to the award show.
No, wait! I'm not a douche! I make people feel good about themselves! I give people resolutions! Now do you people believe me?
I don't know. How'd Edward know my father died in March?
Number 5 is clairvoyance. This ability gives new meaning to the idea of pulling a fact out of thin air. Clairvoyance is known as a sixth sense and completely non-physical. Some clairvoyants can gain information about a specific location or event simply by thinking of it, while others get their information involuntarily. Some clairvoyants can gain information about a specific location or event simply by thinking about it, while others get their information involuntarily, having sudden visions of locations. The first person ever documented to have this ability was a dull-witted peasant named Victor Race, who in 1784 was witnessed by medical professionals entering a trance and coming out of it suddenly articulate. He had completely altered his personality with information about other locations that he had never visited.
It seems like all you did for this one is Google search the word clairvoyance and click on the first link. On top of that, you added false information about Victor Race being in front of medical professionals during these psychic episodes. Not only that, but you failed to read the rest of the Wikipedia article. Here, I'll quote it for you. According to scientific research, clairvoyance is generally explained as the result of confirmation bias, expectancy bias, fraud, hallucination, self-delusion, sensory leakage, subjective validation, wishful thinking, or failure to appreciate the base rate of chance occurrences, and not as a paranormal power.
Number 6 is telepathy. The ultimate method for passing a note in class, telepathy is the ability to transfer a message, image, or information from one person to another using only the mind. The word telepathy comes from the Greek word tele, meaning distant, and pathos, meaning feeling or experience. A fantastic example of people documenting this incredible power happened just recently. On March 28, 2014, Dr. Michael Berg was in northeastern France, while over 7,400 kilometers away, Dr. Alejandro Riera was in Kerala, India. Both men performed one experiment, sending an intercontinental communication without using any form of communication outside of their own brains. And according to multiple scientists involved in the experiment, each of the men were able to successfully send one word to each other.
This one was a bit of a surprise for me, but you're right. Except about this little bit.
Without using any form of communication outside of their own brains.
They did use something other than their brain. In fact, this experiment was only possible through use of the internet and expensive technological equipment. Here's a quote explaining exactly how the experiment was carried out. First, the team had to establish binary code equivalents of letters. For example, H is 00111. Then, with EEG sensors attached to the scalp, the sender moved either his hands or feet to indicate a 0 or a 1. The code then passed to the recipient over email. On the other end, the receiver was blindfolded with a transcranial magnetic stimulation system on his head. The TMS headset stimulated the recipient's brain, causing him to see quick flashes of light. A flash was equivalent to a 1, and a blank was a 0. From there, the code was translated back into text. It took about 70 minutes to relay the message. This was a really interesting read, but I feel like some of the nuances of this experiment are lost when you say,
without using any form of communication outside of their own brains. Number 7 is psychic surgery. Why have expensive operations when a psychic can simply pull that nasty tumor right out of your body?
Okay, we're getting into some dangerous territory here, and I feel like I should warn any viewers watching this. Dear viewers of my channel, if you're experiencing any extreme medical condition, like a tumor, please go to a hospital.
Psychic surgeons are world famous for their ability to reach right into the human body and remove anything that's not supposed to be there. Mostly found in Brazil and the Philippines, people with these talents tend to have a strong connection to the spirit world, and through that, they are not actually entering the body in any capacity. Their abilities have been said to have an incredible effect on many who have believed in them. One such surgeon, a Brazilian native who calls himself John of God, has been healing people since 1958. The difference between him and other psychic surgeons? Well, after he performs the operation, scars can be found inside the body via x-rays.
I did some research on this John of God you talk about, and the only thing I've been able to come up with is the fact that he's a dangerous con man who's been jailed for practicing medicine without a license. He offers his patients the option between a visible and invisible operation. If you choose to get an invisible operation, he'll ask you to meditate in a special room. In fact, you don't even have to physically be there. According to John, you can send a surrogate in your place and it'll still work. This is, however, not what makes him dangerous. What makes him dangerous is the fact that if someone is stupid enough to pick the visible operation, John will cut into you and try to remove whatever is making you feel bad with no anesthetic and no surgical practice. All he uses is mineral water and the power of the spirit realm.
Number 8 is psychokinetic abilities. This one's right out of Star Wars. Use the Force, Matt. Heard it. Psychokinesis, also called telekinesis, is the power of physical manipulation over matter. With this ability, a psychic can reach out with their mind and move objects without actually touching them. Matthew Manning, a British author and healer, is one of the world's most well-known psychokinetics, and although he's faced skepticism from the scientific community, many of the abilities he's demonstrated cannot be explained. After testing Manning in the late 1970s, psychologist William Browd of the Mind Science Foundation concluded that the results were better than chance.
While it is true that Matthew Manning did some sort of test for the Mind Science Foundation, it seems that there is no information available on what these specific tests were. What I was able to find, however, was the fact that Matthew Manning has made claims about his abilities in the past that have been shown to be false. For example, he claimed to draw in the styles of many famous artists, including Pablo Picasso. Manning even told the San Francisco Examiner that an art expert at Sotheby's London had thought one of his Picasso copies was so good it might be mistaken for an original. James Randi investigated this claim by writing to the gallery. A Sotheby's official replied that the claim was absolutely not true. Another case like this was when Manning told the London Daily Mirror that his drawing of a monkey had caused great excitement, because it was strikingly similar to an original by John Savary at the Rijksmuseum, kept locked away in a vault. This was also investigated by James Randi, who wrote a letter to the museum, and it was discovered that the claim was false, as the original was on display to the public, not locked up in a vault. I don't know about you, Matthew, but Manning doesn't really seem like a trustworthy kind of guy, but then again, that's just my opinion.
Number 9 is psychometry. If you want to know your family history or who owned an antique coffee table before you did, you'd ask a grandparent or maybe Google it. But if you had the gift of psychometry, all you would have to do is come in contact with the table. Psychometry is the ability to read an object or person's history by simply placing a hand on them. One of the most famous psychometrists is Stefan Osowicki. He's a psychic from Russia who stunned thousands of people when he took on a test that was set up by a wealthy Hungarian man named Dianzi Junkie. After simply holding a sealed envelope, Stefan correctly identified its contents and identified the fact that the man had been guarding the envelope for up to 8 years.
Really, Matthew? Do you really think that this man has this ability? Well, if you do, then you must not have fact-checked your sources very well. But don't worry, I've gone ahead and done that for you. Stefan Osowicki has been tested multiple times throughout his life, and pretty much failed every time, except for the example you gave. However, C.E.M. Hansel, a British psychologist, claimed that the conditions of this experiment were reminiscent of a simple conjuring trick. In fact, Stefan was so bad at being a psychic that in May of 1939, he predicted that there would be no war in Poland. Well, as it turns out, in September of that same year, Germany invaded Poland.
And number 10 is precognition. When people hear that someone is psychic, they usually believe the individual possesses the power to describe events that are yet to occur. Well, those who practice precognition are often referred to as precogs and have the ability to sense the future of a person, animal, or object through either touch or description. Sometimes a focus item is required, such as a jewel, a bowl of liquid, or a classic crystal ball. Precogs have been known to receive not only visions of the future, but steps that must be taken to either ensure that it happens, or if it's a foreboding warning, how to stop it.
The interesting question is, why do people claim that an event was predicted only after it actually happens? Well, the human brain can be described as a computer. And one of the most advanced features of this computer is the ability to make possible models of the future and plan ahead for them. Before these events happen, we don't know what will actually happen, but immediately after the event, we feel like we predicted it. But in fact, we didn't. We merely guessed it from a myriad of other possible features we considered. This, combined with a phenomenon known as confirmation bias, can lead us to be deluded in our ability to predict the future. Fortune tellers use this to their advantage. Notice how nearly all fortunes are vague and not time-specific. This baits us into believing that the fortune came true when your grandpa dies, all because you remember the fortune teller 3 years ago said, "Somebody near you will die soon." Yet, we seem to forget about all the fortunes that didn't come true. Matthew, I respect you as a content creator, and overall, I think you're a good guy. But please, treat your audience with more dignity, man, by not making videos like these. I spent hours upon hours researching your claims, and I'm convinced that this video was merely meant to be clickbait and not educational in the least. Leave a comment to tell me what you think, like this video if you liked it, dislike it if you hated it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.